Welcome to a deep dive into the world of rock and roll.
Yeah.
Specifically, we're going back to the early days,
Okay.
the time of Beatlemania and the British invasion,
Right.
And we've got this fantastic memoir by Richard Adler. It's called In My Rock and Roll Fantasy.
I love that title.
Yeah, and this isn't just like your average history book or anything.
Wait, no.
This is a guy who actually lived this era.
Right.
Worked with some of the biggest names in music.
Incredible.
The Beatles, the Beach Boys, Herman's Hermits.
Wow.
I mean, you name it, he was probably there.
So what kind of stuff did he get up to?
Oh, we're talking about backstage tranks on George Harrison.
Oh.
Crazy moments at Hullabaloo.
Yeah.
Even some Johnny Ramone mischief you won't believe.
Okay, I gotta hear this.
Oh, you will? You will.
I'm intrigued already.
So one thing that I found really interesting was that
Okay.
Adler was basically still a kid when this all started, Like he was right there experiencing this cultural earthquake firsthand.
Yeah.
So picture this. February 9th, 1964.
Okay.
The Beatles are on Ed Sullivan.
Wow.
73 million people are glued to their TVs.
Huge.
Teenagers are screaming their heads off.
Right.
It's almost hard to grasp the impact that one night had.
It's funny because before that, rock and roll was very much an American thing.
Right.
Elvis, Chuck Berry, all that.
Yeah.
But the Beatles, they brought this fresh sound, this youthful energy, almost like invaders from another planet.
Musically speaking, yeah, totally.
Fully.
And Adler talks about watching that Ed Sullivan Show from his living room.
Okay.
In Forest Hills, he was completely captivated.
I'll bet.
Just like so many other people were buying every record, learning every song.
Right.
And you could just see how that night ignited his own rock and roll dreams.
Absolutely.
I bet a lot of the listeners can relate to that feeling, right?
Oh, yeah, totally. You discover a band that just blows your mind.
Yeah.
And it changes everything.
Yeah, exactly.
You just got to hear more and more and more.
Right.
And, for Adler, it wasn't just about passively listening.
Okay.
Just a few days after that Ed Sullivan appearance, he goes to see the Beatles live at Carnegie Hall.
Wow.
Can you imagine that energy?
Oh, my gosh.
A room full of screaming fans, the music practically shaking the building.
I know there's actually a great quote from Sid Bernstein. He's the promoter who organized that concert. And he said, Carnegie Hall didn't have to worry about its sacred property or paintings on the wall. They shook a little bit, and they asked me never to come back again.
Oh, my God.
That's pretty awesome, right?
That really captures, the rebellious spirit of rock and roll.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's like they were challenging conventions, shaking the foundations, and, Hullabaloo, which Adler mentions, was another key part of this whole thing. It was this TV show, kind of like a precursor to MTV, showcasing all these new rock and roll acts.
Yeah.
It was chaos, but it was exciting chaos.
You know what's amazing is that Adler was right in the middle of it all.
Yeah.
Working with a who's who of rock and roll royalty.
Really?
I mean, just look at the list of bands he worked with.
Okay.
It's incredible.
Right.
The Ramones, Steely Dan, Spirit, Fairport Convention, Tommy James and the Shondells, Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
That's quite a resume.
Yeah, he was an insider.
Wow.
Experiencing this explosive era firsthand.
That's what makes this memoir so compelling. It's not just a dry account of events.
Right.
It's full of these juicy anecdotes, behind-the-scenes stories.
Yeah.
It's like you're getting a backstage pass
I know.
for the most exciting era in music history.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Like he talks about this time
Okay.
when he saw Johnny Ramone
Oh, yeah.
pulling a prank during one of the Beatles concerts at Shea Stadium.
What?
We won't spoil it.
Okay.
But let's just say it involved a guitar and a very famous baseball field.
Oh, my gosh, I gotta know.
You'll have to read the book.
Right. All right.
But it just gives you a sense of the mischief,
Yeah.
the playful energy that surrounded these guys.
It reminds us that even these legendary figures were real people with their quirks and their senses of humor.
Absolutely.
It humanizes them,
Yeah, it makes them relatable.
Yeah.
And there's so many other intriguing stories that he hints at.
Okay.
Like he mentions this incident involving Randy California.
Randy California, okay.
From the band Spirit.
Oh, yeah, I know Spirit.
And why he couldn't join Jimi Hendrix in England.
Oh, that's interesting.
Well, I didn't know that.
It makes you realize how interconnected this whole scene was.
Yeah.
Hendrix, Spirit, the Beatles.
Right.
They were all part of this larger musical movement that was sweeping the globe.
That's really cool.
And Adler even teases a story about how he knows who taught Walter Becker.
Okay.
From Steely Dan.
Steely Dan, yeah.
How to play guitar.
I love Steely Dan.
Me too. Talk about insider knowledge.
I know, right?
It's like all these seemingly random connections led to the creation of some of the most iconic music of all time.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it speaks to the power of mentorship, collaboration, being in the right place at the right time.
Right.
Like a musical family tree with roots spreading out everywhere.
That's a great way to put it.
Influencing and inspiring generations of musicians.
And what's really interesting is Adler captures not just the big names, but also the energy of the era itself.
Right. He describes this feeling of being caught up in this whirlwind of change, excitement, creative exploration.
It's like this sense of possibility breaking boundaries.
Exactly. That's what defined the era.
Yeah, and that feeling is something that still resonates with us today.
Absolutely.
Even if we weren't around to experience Beatlemania firsthand, we can still feel that energy.
Yeah.
In the music, the stories, and the cultural legacy that it left behind.
It makes you wonder, what were the key ingredients that made this era so explosive?
Yeah.
Was it the music itself? The social and political climate? The yearning for something new and exciting? Or was it this perfect storm of all these things converging at just the right moment?
That's a great question.
It is.
And it's one that we'll continue to explore as we delve deeper into Adler's experiences.
Sounds good. Yeah, it's like trying to bottle lightning, isn't it? Trying to pinpoint exactly what made that era so magical.
Yeah.
But that's part of what makes exploring it so fascinating.
It's like a puzzle, right? We have all these pieces.
Right.
The music, the cultural shifts, the personalities, and we're trying to fit them together to understand the bigger picture.
And, you know, Adler provides some really interesting pieces to that puzzle.
Okay.
Remember how we mentioned Davy Jones?
Davy Jones.
Being on that same Ed Sullivan Show with the Beatles?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
He was performing with the cast of Oliver at the time.
Right.
It's wild to think.
It is.
That a future monkey was right there.
I know.
Witnessing the birth of Beatlemania firsthand.
Crazy. Right.
Can you imagine what must have been going through his mind?
I mean...
Did he have any inkling
that
he, too, would soon be riding the wave of British invasion fame?
Talk about being in the right place at the right time.
I know, right?
It's like he got a sneak peek at his own rock and roll destiny.
Yeah.
Unfolding right there on that stage.
It makes you wonder how many other aspiring musicians were watching that night.
Right.
Feeling that same spark of inspiration.
Totally.
That sense of anything is possible.
Yeah. And Adler's story really highlights how the Beatles' impact went far beyond just their music.
Absolutely.
They created this cultural shift, this sense of excitement and possibility that resonated with a whole generation.
And that ripple effect continues to this day.
Oh, totally.
I mean, think about the music festivals we have now.
Right.
The massive crowds, the fan culture.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the same, but you can see echoes of that Beatlemania energy.
For sure.
And you know what else is interesting?
What's that?
Adler's book isn't just about the positive side of fame and success.
Oh.
He's surprisingly candid
Yeah.
about the challenges,
Yeah.
the behind-the-scenes drama,
Right.
even the darker aspects of the music industry.
He doesn't shy away from the chaos.
No, he doesn't.
And the pressures these musicians face.
It's a reminder that even rock stars are human, you know,
Yeah.
dealing with the same vulnerabilities and complexities as anyone else.
Like he talks about this time when Dennis Wilson from the Beach Boys got into a scuffle with security guards
Wow.
during a concert.
Really?
It's a reminder that even amidst the glamour and excitement, there were real-life consequences, real-life struggles.
Right. And it also highlights the importance of having a strong support system, especially in such a high-pressure environment.
Absolutely. And speaking of behind-the-scenes stories, Adler mentions this prank that was pulled on George Harrison at a birthday party.
No way.
It sounds hilarious.
I get.
And it gives you a sense of the camaraderie and the sense of humor that existed within this group of musicians.
It's a good reminder that even these iconic figures were just people, you know, having fun and enjoying each other's company.
Exactly. He also mentions a band that got its uniquely spelled name.
Oh, yeah?
Thanks to John Lennon.
Really? Wow.
That's a story I can't wait to hear.
Me too. It shows how influential Lennon was. Even in these seemingly small interactions, he was a cultural force, a trendsetter.
Totally.
Even in the way he played with language.
But it's not just about the anecdotes, you know? Adler also touches on some of the musical innovations that were happening during this era. Like how the Beatles' use of harmonies and studio techniques differed from previous artists.
Their music was so fresh and innovative, and they weren't afraid to experiment.
No, they weren't.
They pushed the boundaries of what was possible in a recording studio.
And that experimentation, that willingness to push boundaries, is something we see throughout the music of this era.
Yeah, it's not just about catchy tunes.
No.
It's about exploring new sounds, new ideas, new ways of expressing oneself.
It's like they were breaking down walls. And opening up new possibilities for what music could be.
Exactly. And that's why this era continues to be so influential.
Absolutely.
It's not just about nostalgia. It's about the spirit of innovation. The willingness to challenge conventions, the sheer energy and passion that fueled this musical revolution.
So for our listeners, what parts of this era resonate most with you? Is it the music itself? The cultural impact, the personalities, the fashion, or something else entirely?
What parallels do you see to music and fandom today?
It's a question worth considering. Because even though this era happened decades ago, its influence is still felt today.
It's like a thread. Woven into the fabric of our culture. A reminder that music has the power to change the world.
And that's what makes exploring this era so rewarding. You know?
It is.
It's not just about looking back. It's about understanding how the past shapes the present. And influences the future of music.
It's a reminder that music is more than just entertainment, you know? It's a cultural force.
Absolutely.
A way of expressing ourselves, a way of connecting with others. And a way of making sense of the world around us.
We've talked a lot about the impact of the Beatles. But Adler's book also highlights the contributions of other key players in the British invasion. You know, bands like the Rolling Stones. Kinks, The Who.
They all brought something unique to the table.
And let's not forget the American artists. Who were influenced by this wave of British music. Think about bands like the Beach Boys, the Byrds, even Jimi Hendrix. They all absorbed those influences and created something new and exciting.
I'd like this musical conversation, a back and forth exchange of ideas and influences that shaped the sound of a generation.
And it wasn't just about the music itself. You know, there was this whole cultural shift happening, a change in attitudes, fashion, even politics.
The British invasion wasn't just about music.
No.
It was about this youthful energy.
Yeah.
A sense of rebellion.
Right.
A desire to break free from the conventions of the past.
It's like they were challenging the status quo.
Yeah.
Pushing boundaries and creating a new world where anything felt possible.
And that sense of possibility, that energy, that's something that still resonates with us today.
It's why we still listen to this music, why we still talk about this era, why we still find ourselves drawn to the stories of the people who lived through it.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Richard Adler's In My Rock and Roll Fantasy, let's leave our listeners with a final thought. If you could step back in time and meet any of the musicians Adler worked with, who would it be?
Would you want to chat with a Beatle?
Oh, God.
Maybe have a jam session with Brian Wilson?
Yeah.
Or perhaps pick the brain of a lesser-known figure like Randy California?
It's a fun thought experiment, isn't it?
It is.
To imagine sitting down with one of these musical icons. Hearing their stories firsthand. And getting a glimpse into their creative process.
And what question would you ask them?
Ooh, good one.
What insight would you want to gain from their experiences? What advice would you seek?
It's a reminder that behind the music, behind the fame, behind the legend, there are real people. With real stories to tell.
And those stories are worth seeking out, you know?
They are.
Because they can teach us about ourselves, about music, about history, and about the enduring power of human creativity.
If you want to learn more about Adler's wild ride through the world of rock and roll, I highly recommend checking out his book, In My Rock and Roll Fantasy. It's a fascinating glimpse into a pivotal era in music history.
It is.
Told from the perspective of someone who was right in the heart of it all.
It's a reminder that sometimes even the most fantastical dreams can come true.
Yeah.
And that the music we love has the power to connect us across generations.
Absolutely.
Reminding us that the spirit of rock and roll is alive and well.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep listening, and keep the music playing.